good evening to you and welcome to Correro here on Rapid Television. I am Godwin Sunday. On this platform, we examine the issues shaping governance and public life in Nigeria, looking beyond politics to the legal and policy questions behind major decisions. Now, today, our focus is on local government autonomy. For years, local governments have remained constitutionally recognized but practically constrained, largely due to state control over funding and administration. Well, recently, the conversation resurfaced following remarks by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu suggesting the use of executive powers to enforce local government autonomy. That statement has raised important legal questions. Can executive order compel autonomy within a federal system? What does the Constitution permit? And how does this affect the balance of powers between the federal government and the state? These questions go beyond politics. They touch on constitutional authority and the rule of law and the future of grassroots governance in Nigeria. So tonight on Correro, we examine the legal implications of President's position and also what is realistic about the pathways that exist for reforms, especially within the local government tier of government. Now, joining me in the studio tonight is Barrister Salifu Oguche Usman, a lawyer and a social and public commentator. Well, he will be helping us put these issues in perspective and helping us to even understand what local government autonomy is and what it represents across board. I will take a short break right now. When we return, we will dive into the conversation. Please stay with us as Correro is just starting. Oh, you're welcome back. Well, I have with me in the studio a person of Barrister Usman Salifu Oguche. Well, Barrister, you're welcome to Correro.
Thank you, Mr. Godwin, for having me.
Once again, let me say Happy New Year to you.
Same here. Happy New Year.
All right. So Barrister, let's even delve into the conversation by first you helping us to understand what is local government autonomy, because it tends to be a conversation that a lot of persons don't even understand what it is by the Schedule 7 of the Nigerian Constitution. But help us understand what is local government autonomy from the legal standpoint.
Very well. Once again, thank you for having me on this program. Local government autonomy, so to say, is a concept that gives meaning to the constitutional arrangement whereby the entity designated as the local government areas or council, as in the case of the Federal Capital Territory, are allowed to function without let or hindrance under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Local government, which is the third tier of government, because under the Nigerian federal system, structurally the country is divided into the federal government, the state government, and at the local level, which is the closest tie to the ordinary citizen, you have the local government. Local government is a confined area within which a government is superimposed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that council is empowered with the political will and structure to administer the area. And the autonomy in this case is the right of that council to administer the local government without let or hindrance, without interference from both the federal and the state government. The autonomy connotes its being in total control of its revenue and also being in total control of the administration of its sphere of jurisdiction. In other words, it should be completely independent in determining what project to embark on, how to administer its area, how to deploy its resources, how to realize resources, and all of that. In other words, or in summary, local government autonomy means a local government that is completely independent in raising revenue, in assessing revenue from whatever source as designated under the Constitution, in deploying those revenue, and in administering its territory.
All right. So, Barrister, at this point, Schedule 7 of the Nigerian Constitution made it clear on what the local government should be as a third tier of government. That issue was taken to the Supreme Court for it to address. And of course, the Apex Court was able to take a stand on that decision. The state government, governors rather, also took a stand despite the Supreme Court ruling. But then I'm curious at this point, from the point of law, did the Supreme Court err in even admitting and interpreting Schedule 7 of the Constitution?
You know, the Supreme Court is the apex court of the land. It is the court vested with the ultimate power of interpreting the provisions of the Constitution and every other enactment as may have been made by the National Assembly or state legislature. That being the case, the Supreme Court has all the powers under the Constitution and otherwise to interpret Schedule 7 of the 1999 Constitution and every other part of the 1999 Constitution. Is fall squarely within the powers and functions of the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, I think that decision of the Supreme Court was given in July 2024. And that has also given birth to the threatened executive order and all of that. The Supreme Court is in order, in my opinion.
Because I for one, I thought that the Supreme Court has erred in even admitting the admissibility of evidence and even try to interpret that schedule of the Constitution, knowing fully well that it was clearly stated, going by the purposive approach and the literal approach in legal interpretations. One would have expected that the Supreme Court would have even squashed out that case. So for even interpreting it, it means it has helped to accelerate the interpretation and help us to understand the point of view of that. If I'm not a lawyer, but then you are.
You know, the Supreme Court is not just a court of law. There is a policy-making court. When there is chaos, or there is an impending chaos, or there is a constitutional logjam, the Supreme Court has a primary responsibility to step in and avert such situation. So the Supreme Court, relying on the fact that being the apex court and a policy-making court, can, in certain circumstances, take such a position. So the Supreme Court acted, in my opinion, rightly by exercising jurisdiction over issues bordering on local government or autonomy. And let me state this, why the Supreme Court exercise of jurisdiction over the matter is more apt. Local government spread across all the states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. Local government were created under the Constitution. The structure and standard of administration were created under the Constitution. And who else would be appropriate in determining or interpreting matters that borders on an institution that cut across all the states of the Federation, if not the Supreme Court? And as a policy-making court, meaning that once the Supreme Court make a pronouncement, that is the highest pronouncement of law in the land. So the Supreme Court is the appropriate body to have made that pronouncement.
All right. So recently, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came out to say that he has the knife and he has the yam.
Yes.
The yam and the knife. Yes. So some people have even tagged it to be the yam and the knife principle initiated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Very well.
In his statement, he said that the governors fail to do what is necessary.
Yes.
He will ensure that
will
exercise executive order.
Very well.
So I'm curious at this point in time, help us to understand the position of executive order in a decision that has already been taken by the Supreme Court and also clearly interpreted in the Constitution. Is the president right in his assertion? I
think we need an in-depth understanding of what an executive order itself is.
All right.
And where the powers to make executive order is coming from. Remember, under Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution, the executive power of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is vested on who? the President of the Federal Republic, and all such other persons that he may appoint for the administration of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is where the knife and yam, the knife and yam issue is coming from. If you take a holistic study of federal system across the globe, you will find out that one of the most powerful executive presidents or presidents of nations on planet Earth is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His powers are so wide and vast, even far more than that of the President of the United States of America. And under our Constitution, by the provision of Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution, Mr. President derives the power to make executive order. That takes us now to what is executive order. Executive order is a directive from the President to any other authority within the executive organs of government, directing him or her or the institution to implement a particular governmental policy. Now, the executive order threatened in this circumstance is this. The Supreme Court has given, let me say something before I even go down to break that down. The executive order or powers of Mr. President can only be utilized to direct the execution or implementation or carrying out of a directive that is allowed under the Constitution. That it is legally a duty that has been legally established either under the Constitution or any other enactment. Once a particular duty is legal, constitutionally or legislatively guaranteed, and for whatever reason such is not being implemented, the President, relying on the powers granted him under Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution, can direct an institution, an individual, to implement that law. So the President is saying that under the 1999 Constitution, remember the provision of the Constitution that created local government areas as the 774 local government as contained under this Constitution shall exist and be administered independently under structures and system as may be guaranteed by the state government. That is where the lacuna comes in. Now the directive threatened by Mr. President is to take direct executive organs to implement the interpretation or order of the Supreme Court. In this wise, if I may go further to say, the President has the power to direct the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Federal Allocation and Fiscal Commission FAC, and every other governmental executive institution on how to deploy, channel, and release funds directly to local government.
So in this case, President addressing governors,
yes, sir,
and threatening to implement executive order, is this not the right step in the wrong direction?
Absolutely right step in the right direction. What is the
Already the Constitution has made it clear.
Very well.
The interpretation by the Supreme Court has made it clear.
Very well.
The governors are saying that they are ready to implement, but then the CBN right now is the local government Nuge is saying that their money is being held by the CBN, not the governors in this point. And the presidency controls largely the CBN.
Very well.
And the president is threatening executive order to the governors. At this point, is this not the right step in the wrong direction?
No. I think you are missing. All
right, please help us to understand it.
No, look at the frustration that the frustration and the problem, the mischief that Mr. President is trying to curb by threatening the executive order. Our local government, as its way, had their accounts tied to state government's accounts. Our local government, as its way, had their leadership, their elections are conducted by State Independent Electoral Commission and not the Independent National Electoral Commission. Our local government has their security and every other structure determined by the state government. And the state government had taken advantage of they call it joint allocation. Joint allocation in the sense that the state government have a designated account wherein all the allocation accruable to local governments within a state are paid into a particular state government controlled account, and the state government through their state accountant general and accountant general for local government and auditor general for local government and their staff dictates how these funds are being channeled. The local government don't have direct access to their own
by the
account.
Supreme Court interpretation,
yes,
the local government finances
very well
ought to go to the local government.
That is
and
where,
who is responsible for ensuring that the local government funds get to the local government? It's not the governors,
very well,
because the funds is disbursed by the CBN.
Very well.
Now the president is threatening executive orders to the governors.
That is where the issue comes. Ordinarily, local government are to have.
Shouldn't the president be talking to the CBN?
No, the problem is not with the CBN. The CBN is ready to deploy to send the money to the local government directly, but the local government, because their hands are tied, they don't have independent account for the CBN to release the funds to. They only have joint accounts, which is controlled by the governors. The governors do projects for local government. The governors release funds to local. If I begin to reel out the anomalies, the evil being perpetrated in the local government system in Kogi, my home state, you will cry for local government. We have a system that local government chairman have been given 5 million naira as their own impress, and the entire allocation is at the beck and call of Mr. Governor and his accountant general. They pay salary, they do project for local government. The local government chairman does not close to nothing. So that is the mischief Mr. President is trying to call. Mr. President is only saying that state governors allow local government to have an account through which CBN can release their funds directly to them. But let me tell you something. The problem is even far beyond that. We have a system that it is State Independent Electoral Commission that conducts election through which local government officials are elected. Now the state government is in charge of, the state government is the owner of the State Independent Electoral Commission. The state government appoints the chairman and every other officers, and in the state government indirectly controls the conduct of this election. And tell me, Mr. Godwin, you are a journalist of repute. Over the years that you have practiced as a journalist, tell me, except for the Federal Capital Territory where the Independent National Electoral Commission conduct election for area councils, tell me which other states that conduct election for local government and doesn't return 100% of the local government seats to the party in power. So that is the problem. The state government is so overbearing and dominating that local government have been stifled, been muzzled, and the president is saying that the Supreme Court and the Constitution has directed, has expressly provided for an independent and autonomous local government. But this autonomy is being undermined by the state government, who siphon money through the local government.
The state governors will disagree with you on this point, because
we can challenge them.
At the top tier of government, yes, which the local government represents,
yes,
one would have expected that the local government should have gone ahead to create its own account, then provide these account details to the CBN in order to receive their fund based on the Supreme Court interpretation.
Yes.
But then the local government at this point, majority of the local government, 774 local governments, have not gone out to even open accounts for themselves. At this point, shouldn't the president be talking directly to the 774 local governments on one hand? On the other hand, addressing governors and threatening an executive order? Again, I ask, is this not the right step in the wrong direction?
I insist that it is the right step in the right direction. And let me tell you once again, you are missing the point.
All right.
The point is that the local governments, as they are today, they have been stifled, they have been politically traumatized, and they have been put in the pocket.
Despite the Supreme Court interpretation.
The Supreme Court
and the Supreme Court did not err in its interpretation.
No. God forbid. I would not sit down here and agree with you that the Supreme Court did not err. So,
let's from a legal standpoint, the Supreme Court did not err.
Not at all.
The Supreme Court made appropriate rulings on all of this.
That is where the
implementation to the governors, is it the right step? Is the president not supposed to be talking to the local governments at this point in time?
No. Look at why the president has to talk to the governors.
So, which means that if the president in this case is not talking to the local governments, which means automatically the president is also disregarding the Supreme Court verdict.
No, not at all.
Help us understand.
Look at it like this. The local government as they are today are an appendage of the state governments. The local government chairman and his councillors, the legislative councils, are persons recruited or handpicked by most governors of the states. These guys have their resignation letter even signed in advance. They lack the political will. They lack the political structure to even take steps to open an account that can be independent.
So the president is not addressing the local government.
The president knows the handicap of the local government.
If the president cannot address the local government at the top tier of government, doesn't this show the complicity of the president?
No. The president is only being realistic as the father of the nation. The president is being realistic because the president has been a governor before now. Remember, Mr. President was a governor for 8 years. This is a game that he himself has been involved. He knows how it works. He knew that the local government as they are today cannot by any way begin to conceive the idea of an independent account unless and until they are expressly allowed to do so by the governor. And that is why he's talking to those that have the power to have an independent local government account through which their federal allocation can be released to them, properly addressed. If the governors today sincerely and honestly give the free hand to local government executive officials to open their independent local government account, they will do the same without any form of delay. But let me tell you one thing.
All right.
This local government account, through the joint account, most of them are in deficit. The governors have mortgaged them, and as such, they wouldn't allow this local government to open independent accounts. And that is why Mr. President is addressing, he has been a partisan player within the political life of this country. He has been governor, he has been everything you can think of, and he knows how this thing works. He knows that unless and until the governor's hands are forced off the local government, those guys cannot have. Let me also remind you, state houses of assembly in this our generation voted against their own autonomy. Are you not aware? They voted against their own economy because it's not in the interest of the governors. That's the same situation with the local government. Unless and until the state governors give them the go-ahead to have their independent account, those handpicked local government officials do not have any power. They don't have any standing to have their independent account. And that's why Mr. President is saying, if you do not allow these people to open their independent account and exist autonomously, I will be forced to use my powers executive order under the Constitution to direct the implementation of the orders of the Supreme Court. And what does that mean for every participant in the local government sector? It means a local government that doesn't have an independent account through which it can be funded, and also a democratically elected council would not access federal allocation.
All right. So let me even understand the position of the Supreme Court right now.
Yeah.
What does this say about the principle of separation of power? Knowing fully well, as it stands right now, Schedule 7 of Nigerian Constitution is clearly interpreted. It is axiomatic. It is self-explanatory.
Very well.
The Supreme Court was able to interpret it, and you said the Supreme Court did not err. Now, despite the Supreme Court ruling on this, the president still needs to compel the governors to take their hands off the coffers of local government. I ask again, what does this say about, first, the principle of separation of power? Secondly, the principle of even separation of power drawn down to the 3 tiers of government.
Okay.
Is it more of a master-servant relationship?
Local government and state government relationship is completely that of master-servant relationship. Because the local governments who existed under the state government over decades.
So we should fault the Supreme Court in this case.
No,
we should fault the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court has now become more of a, sorry to use this word, more of a toothless bulldog by taking a stand and not following it up to see its implementation.
I think you are missing up issues.
If the Supreme Court has taken a stand, interpreted clearly,
and that is where the executive order
Schedule 7 of the Nigerian Constitution, clearly interpreted by the Supreme Court, and they did not err. And right now, there is no follow-up to ensure that this is fully implemented. Should we say that the Supreme Court is liable for why local government is where it is right now?
You see, everything as analyzed by you is falling into perspective. Do you know why? The Supreme Court, as an apex judicial authority, its duty, it's solely interpretation and pronouncement on the law. The Supreme Court do not have any power whatsoever to follow up by way of implementation. The power of implementation falls squarely on the president, the executive arm of the government, and that is where the exercise of executive orders. And
when this whole interpretation and also ruling by the Supreme Court is not fully implemented, are we saying at this point that the Supreme Court becomes a toothless bulldog?
No, the Supreme Court has done its own duty
and not following up.
Based on it, it has no duty to follow up. Its duty stops squarely at interpreting and making orders. That it has done. Then the ball now shifts to the table of the executive, which is headed by Mr. President. And Mr. President, in implementing, has the powers to rely on an executive order. So everything is in the right sequence.
All right, you've said everything is in the right sequence, but at this point, I'm curious. With what is playing out right now in the local government and the third tier of government,
very well.
Looking at President trying to even say, to threaten, 2 weeks after the President made that statement, most state governors, especially the all-progressive state governors, have not gone back to even see how to work out modalities to create an account for the local government. At this point, I am curious. Are we saying that the president is not fully in control, even at the echelon of the government?
You know, there is a perspective to all of this. The local government system, as it exists as of today, profits majorly the state governors, because the entire resources of the local governments under them are their beck and call. And most often than not, when you hear that 800 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion was siphoned and all of that, the bulk of those money being siphoned were local government funds siphoned by governors.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. No, we have some that we have some that
let's allege on it because we don't have the facts.
We have some that the costs have actually
we don't have the facts.
We have some. We have some.
Not just allege on it.
We have some.
We don't have the facts, barrister.
No, let's look at it like
this.
Right. There are certain former governors who've been prosecuted up to conviction and sentenced. You understand?
Yeah.
Those ones are no longer in the realm of allegedly. There are some whose trials are still ongoing. Those ones are in the realm of allegedly. You get the perspective?
Yeah.
That's been the case. Now, this is it. No, especially in Nigeria, that corruption has been institutionalized. It is very difficult for you to take off the proceed of corruption or the system of corruption from any Nigerian without a fight. Now, the state governors who've entrenched a system through joint accounts that profits them and serve their structure. Now, the Supreme Court made a pronouncement last year. Let me tell you how these guys sabotage the system. In 2024, the Supreme Court came up with a judgment that said allocations should no longer be released to local government that are not democratically governed. Meaning that local government that has caretaker committees or sole administrators or whatever will not have allocation released to them. What did our state governors do? With their State Independent Electoral Commission, which is an arm of the state government, they made caricature of local government election and brought in their boys through the back door as elected local government councils. And they continued with the same joint account. So they are running, now on the surface of it, it seems that they have complied with one leg of that judgment by now having their local government run by democratically elected officials.
Yeah.
But now those democratically elected officials can now assess the funds as pronounced by the Supreme Court, but the funds still goes to the joint accounts presided over by the governor and his accountant general, who now release patronage sums to local government for payment of salaries and interest for their offices, and now intend over the rest. Now the president is saying that this is not the purport and intendment of the judgment of the Supreme Court. The intendment of that judgment is that you should have a democratically elected local government with an independent account, divorced from state control. That is the autonomy. Devoid of state control. Let me tell you, growing up as a child in Kogi, I had a local government chairman then, the late Chief James Ako. They were as powerful as governors because local governments were autonomous. The last time we had mass recruitment within my community was under him, because then they operated autonomously. They could recruit staffs. The local government were employing graduates. They could recruit teachers. They recruited staffs. They were building schools. They were building hospitals, markets. They were doing feeder roads and all of that. That was the glorious day of local government. That's what Mr. President wants us to return to, and he can only achieve that when local government assess their funds independently, one. Then secondly, I am saying it loud and clear, unless and until our election into local government offices are conducted by the same INEC, you cannot achieve that.
All right, so in the case of addressing the concerns raised by a lot of Nigerians, that the CBN should have been given that mandate to compel the local government to create an account, and also by extension open an account for the 774 local government and assign them the account details. Is this not a way to go?
It's the way to go. That's the executive order the president.
But the president has not. He threatened.
No,
that he said.
What he told them is,
the government,
if you don't give
the government the mandate to go back and do what is needful. In this case, the president, talking to the local government chairman, would have easily and conveniently speak to the CBN to do the needful.
Mr. President spoke to the governors because he knew where the issues lie.
So if he speaks to the CBN, as he heard,
Mr. President invariably will speak to that is what he has threatened, because the CBN is under the powers and control.
So if the president is even looking at implementing that Supreme Court ruling, shouldn't the president be talking directly to the CBN other than talking to the governor?
Remember,
knowing fully well that he has served in various capacities as we know in the country, the CBN would have been the perfect persons or institution to give that instruction to, compel them to open, other than talking to the local government. When we speak to the local government, wouldn't this take us back to the draconian age where we have a master-servant relationship across board, and by such, the local governments are under the bondage of the state governors?
I think there is something fundamental that you are taking your eyes off.
All right.
And that is the fact that this is a democracy. It is a politically driven system. Mr. President is a politician. Mr. President also understands and appreciates
under 3 years of government and the government that promised renewal and change. All right, please go ahead.
Mr. President understands and appreciates the powers and positions of the governors as authorities closer to the electorate than the presidency. Remember, under the structure as we have today, you have the local government as the closest tie to the ordinary person. You have the state government, which is closer and superintends over the state government. Then you have the federal government, who is up there. Mr. President, in all of the political arrangements in Nigeria, most often than not, every president tries as much as possible to have a good relationship with most governors, and that explains why you have all kinds of political.
Despite the Supreme Court ruling.
Just a moment.
All right, please.
That is why you have all the political machinations that is bringing almost all the governors in the country to the All Progressive Congress. That haven't been said. Let me say this again. Now, Mr. President is trying to be politically correct by getting the governors to do the needful than him imposing needs on them
and when ultimately before these governments have not implemented.
Yes.
And you're now compelling them to implement what the Supreme Court has already.
Political correctness. Otherwise, ordinarily, Mr. President has the power and the wherewithal to direct the CBN to do the needful, even with any
further. So you're saying that the president is not complicit in this whole issues?
Like I told you, the president is a politician. He carries out administration alongside politics. He has to be to some extent politically correct while also trying to achieve his renewed hope agenda. It is political correctness that dictated that
at the detriment of the local government, at the detriment of the Supreme Court ruling.
The Supreme Court ruling is not suffering in any case. The Supreme Court ruling...
Local government for 2 years have not received a dime.
No, who
from
says?
The Supreme Court.
Who says?
The CBN have said.
No. My local government received its allocation.
Let me say this. That the local government have come out to say that the CBN have refused to disburse funds to them.
Those are local governments like Osun that were having issues.
With the whole accusation that they don't have accounts. And as such, most of the accounts that they have are not recognized.
No.
In this case, yeah, please go ahead.
No. That information is not correct.
All right.
Local government that had their allocation withheld were local governments that were not having democratically elected leadership.
So you're saying for the last 2 weeks now, local government funds go directly to the local government.
Yes.
So autonomy has been fully implemented.
Local government allocation goes to the local government, but the anomaly is that it still goes through the state government. So
you are talking. You're saying 12. I'm saying 1 dozen. We're saying the same thing from different perspectives.
Okay, very well.
It's going through a joint account.
Yes.
By the state.
Very well.
Which means that the local government don't receive their funds directly.
Very well.
So if we are on the same page,
we are on the same page to that extent now.
I am right to now say that at this point that the local governments are not receiving their money based on the fact that they are supposed to be autonomous.
Very well.
Now, which means that in this case,
they are receiving it by proxy.
By proxy.
Very well.
Now, receiving it by proxy, and the president is also ensuring that he is pampering the governors to ensure that they do the needful. Doesn't this spell doom for local government administration in the country?
We can't deny the fact that local government,
even looking at the 1975 local government reforms across
local governments have not, and the system have not suffered gravely under this present arrangement. But I think the presidency has shown some degree of determination to correct that.
By talking to the governors and not the local government. By not talking to the CBN. The
president is not talking to the local government because he knows that they are completely helpless.
He's not talking to the CBN. He's the needful. So you have to threaten the governors to go back and force the local government to do the needful.
They threat to the governor. Let me tell you how administration works.
Please go ahead.
Even in our relationship as private legal practitioners with government institutions, once you want to insist on the government agency doing a particular thing, you will write a final demand telling them that if you don't do this within 2 months, within 30 days, I will take legal action against you. I think what Mr. President did is a final warning. If you don't do this, I will, relying on the powers conferred on me, use my executive order to get that.
So, Schedule 7 of the Constitution right now.
Yes.
Does it hold water?
You know, the Constitution is a working document.
And the president is not willing to work with that.
The Constitution is alive. But who speaks breath into it? Is the president. And that is what he's trying to do. Why do presidents take oath of office by swearing to uphold the Constitution? Because that is his duty. That is what he's elected to do. And that is what he's trying to do. So there is completely nothing wrong with what Mr. President is trying to do. He has sworn to uphold the Constitution. What does it take to uphold something? Ensuring that all its tenets are strictly adhered to, isn't it? That is what Mr. President is trying to do.
Let me go by your narrative that the president is politically correct in this instance. But then, as it stands, if the governors decides to do otherwise, based on the principle of separation of power as enshrined even in the Nigerian Constitution, would the president also be politically correct to, from the legal angle, to compel the governors to do the needful or even instruct the CBN?
It's so simple. The executive order is
politically correct legally.
The executive order can be 2 ways. If you don't get your local government to get an independent autonomous account, CBN, stop releasing funds to joint accounts. That's the first leg of implementation. Secondly, CBN create an independent account for all local government and release the fund directly to
we should have been the first step.
Mr. Godwin, let me tell you one thing. Under the present arrangement, I have seen it happen. I have been to EFCC on this matter. If you create an independent account for local government that have been handpicked, whose officials have been, and the chairman have been handpicked by the government, do you know what will happen the next day? They will withdraw that same money and go and give it back to the governor.
Oh, we can't say that for a fact.
I have seen it happen.
We can't say
you
that.
You want me to be very vivid with you?
Except you want to give us more.
I will give you vivid. I will give you vivid.
All right, please go ahead.
I was at EFCC sometime in 2024. A petition was before the independent, the EFCC, from what do you call this body? Is it this body, transparency something that has been on the neck of governmental organizations with respect to corruption? SERAP. The petition was from SERAP, and it was against all the houses of assembly members and local government heads in Kogi State. And incidentally, one of the House of Assembly member from a local government in my state was my client, and I went with him. And when the investigation was, the accusation by SERAP was that funds released to local government were handed over in cash to the state government through the State Auditor General, and also that local government, House of Assembly members and local government chairmen signed to have collected cash of 50 million naira on a particular date. Mr. Godwin, I represent, including my own client, they confessed that they were only given 5 million and asked to sign that they collected 50 million. You know, 50, you can't take above 5 million naira as cash for whatever transaction under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. My own clients, my clients confessed that they and the local government, they were only given 5 million naira and asked to sign that they collected 50 million naira, which nobody would have paid to them by cash and all of that. The local government guys came and said, okay, normally what happened, these facts are before the EFCC, that normally what happens is that at the end of the day, after allocation has been released, they signed vouchers, they signed whatever, and return the money to the state government. Then they give them certain percentage for the running of the local government. So these things are practical issues that has to be dealt with, and the root of it is our local government official recruitment process. Not until the system is structured in such a way that I can go to my people now and say they elect me as local government chairman without the help of of the governor. If my people can directly elect me, as was the case in 1991, that is the beginning of the beginning. Any system that it's structured under this arrangement whereby the State Independent Electoral Commission, which is under the control of the governor, is responsible for election of local government chairmen and councillors and all of that, they will always bring in their talks, who at the end of the day will either through an independent account or through the joint account, they will return the money to them and sign that they collected the money. It will still be game as usual.
Interesting so far. So when we look at this, you say that at this point, even if the president, if I get you correctly,
very well,
even if the president instruct the CBN to open an account for the local government will still return those funds back.
They will use their own hands, carry the money and return them back to the governors, because the governors handpicked these officials and put them, these are not the representatives of the people. Tell me, I challenge you now, tell me, in the 36 states of the federation, tell me which state that you are having the local government chairmen that are evenly balanced between the party in power and the opposition parties. More than 90 to 100% of all our local government are elected on the platform or appointed or selected on the platform of the party in power in their states. That is the unfortunate reality. And they are appointed because they don't even, local government elections are not elections. The last one that was done in my place, I wasted my money to travel because I participate in all the political process in my state. I wasted my money to go home. No ballot paper ever came. We sat at home waited, got tired, we went home before
But result was
PM,
declared.
before 1 p.m. The own result doesn't take. See, the last election, while we were waiting for I had an opposition candidate that we were working in. We had a situation room, and somebody told us that by 11 they said their results were already ready. That somebody just told them in the state independent, like if they start announcing now, it would be so obvious.
Now this is very interesting.
That it would be so obvious that there was no election, and we waited to no avail. No election material came, and by 2 or thereabout, results were out. So that kind of system can never.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and keep following the conversation around local government, and hopefully that we will get the facts and also follow through with what the president have said that he will do, and if the money will eventually be returned back to the local the governor's coffers at this point, like as you've alleged, that it's going back to the governors.
We are here. We challenge any local government officials. We challenge any state government official to come and sit on the other side. Let's debate this. We have facts and figures to dish out.
Well, at this point, I want to say thank you so much, Barrister Salifu, for finding out time to be with us here on Correro.
Thank you always for having me.
Well, viewers, this is how far we can go tonight on Correro. Don't forget that you can join the conversation on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen. And you can also download the Rapid TV app from your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Do enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.